Have you ever felt like you're trapped in a maze of your own making, running into the same dead ends over and over? You're not alone. We're about to embark on a journey through the labyrinth of our minds, exploring why we get stuck in negative patterns and how we can finally break free. Imagine you're holding a map that's supposed to lead you to treasure, but every time you follow it, you end up right back where you started. That's what it feels like to be caught in a negative pattern. You keep trying the same approach, hoping for a different outcome, but the result is always the same: frustration, disappointment, and a gnawing sense that you're missing something crucial. But here's the twist. Sometimes, repeating these patterns is exactly what we need to do. It's not about the repetition itself, but about what happens during that process. Each time we run through a pattern, we have the opportunity to learn something new about ourselves, to gain a little more insight into why we do what we do. Think of it like learning to ride a bike. You don't just hop on and pedal away perfectly the first time. You wobble, you fall, you get back up, and you try again. Each attempt teaches you something: how to balance, how to steer, how to recover when you start to tip. The same principle applies to our mental and emotional patterns. Now, you might be wondering, if repeating patterns can be helpful, why do we need to break them at all? The key lies in awareness. There's a world of difference between mindlessly cycling through a pattern and consciously observing it as it unfolds. When we're on autopilot, our patterns operate in the background, silently reinforcing themselves with each repetition. It's like watering a weed without realizing it. The more you do it, the stronger it grows. But when we bring our patterns into the foreground of our awareness, something remarkable happens. We start to see them for what they really are. Not inevitable facts of life, but learned behaviors that we've picked up along the way. We begin to notice the gap between what these patterns promise us and what they actually deliver. Let's take a common pattern: perfectionism. On the surface, it seems like a positive trait. Who doesn't want to do their best work? But when we run this pattern with awareness, we might notice that it often leads to procrastination, anxiety, and a constant feeling of falling short. We see how the promise of excellence turns into a prison of unrealistic expectations. This is where the magic of awareness really shines. As we observe our patterns in action, our minds start to gather data. We notice the emotional toll, the missed opportunities, the strain on our relationships. Slowly but surely, we build a case against the very patterns we've been clinging to for so long. It's important to understand that this process isn't about judgment or self-criticism. In fact, it's quite the opposite. By bringing awareness to our patterns, we're extending compassion to ourselves. We're acknowledging that these behaviors served a purpose at one point, even if they're no longer helpful. Think of it like cleaning out an old closet. You might come across items that were once precious to you but no longer fit your life. You don't berate yourself for having kept them. You simply recognize that it's time to let them go. The same gentle approach applies to our mental and emotional patterns. As we continue to observe our patterns with this compassionate awareness, something remarkable begins to happen. We start to create space between ourselves and the pattern. Instead of being swept along by it, we can pause and consider whether we want to engage with it or not. This space is where our power to change truly lies. But here's where many people get stuck. They recognize their patterns, they see the harm they're causing, but they still can't seem to break free. Why? Because change isn't just about knowing better, it's about feeling safe enough to do better. Our patterns, as harmful as they might be, are familiar. They're the devil we know, and stepping away from them can feel terrifying. This is where self-compassion becomes crucial. We need to create an internal environment where change feels safe and possible. This might involve reassuring ourselves that it's okay to make mistakes, that we're worthy of love and belonging even if we're not perfect, that our value doesn't depend on our productivity or achievements. As we cultivate this self-compassion, we begin to loosen the grip of our negative patterns. We start to see alternatives that we couldn't perceive before. Maybe instead of striving for perfection, we can aim for progress. Instead of avoiding all risks to stay safe, we can take small, calculated steps towards growth. This is the dawn of wisdom. Not the kind of wisdom that comes from books or lectures, but the deep, experiential wisdom that comes from living and learning. It's the wisdom that whispers, this path isn't working anymore, and that's okay. You're ready for something new. But let's be clear, this wisdom doesn't usually arrive in a flash of insight. It's more like a slow sunrise, gradually illuminating the landscape of our minds. We might have to run through our patterns many times before we're truly ready to let them go. And that's perfectly fine. In fact, it's an essential part of the process. Each time we repeat a pattern with awareness, we're gathering more data, building a stronger case for change. We're also practicing the skills we'll need to break free: self-observation, self-compassion, and the ability to sit with discomfort without immediately reacting. As we continue this practice, we start to notice something shifting. The pull of our old patterns becomes weaker. We find ourselves pausing more often, considering our choices, and sometimes, perhaps to our surprise, choosing differently. These moments might be small at first, but they're incredibly significant. They're the first steps on a new path. This is where the real adventure begins. As we start to break free from our old patterns, we enter uncharted territory. It can be exciting, but it can also be scary. We might find ourselves facing challenges we've always avoided, feeling emotions we've kept buried, or discovering aspects of ourselves we never knew existed. But here's the beautiful thing. With each step we take away from our old patterns, we're building new neural pathways in our brains. We're literally rewiring ourselves for growth and change. It might feel uncomfortable at first, like wearing a new pair of shoes, but over time, these new ways of thinking and behaving start to feel natural. As we continue on this journey, we might notice that our relationships start to change. People who were used to our old patterns might be surprised or even unsettled by our new behavior. Some relationships might grow stronger as we become more authentic and present. Others might fade away as we outgrow old dynamics. This process of growth and change isn't always linear. There will be days when we slip back into old patterns, especially under stress. But here's the key. These slips don't erase our progress. In fact, they're opportunities to practice self-compassion and recommit to our growth. Each time we pick ourselves up and return to our new path, we're strengthening our resilience. As we become more adept at recognizing and shifting our patterns, we might start to notice them in others too. This can be a double-edged sword. On one hand, it can help us empathize with others who are struggling. On the other hand, it can be tempting to try to fix people or point out their patterns. Remember, though, that everyone is on their own journey. Just as we needed to repeat our patterns many times before we were ready to change, others might need to do the same. The most powerful thing we can do is to focus on our own growth and lead by example. As we continue to break free from negative patterns, we might find that our entire worldview starts to shift. Things that once seemed impossible start to feel within reach. We become more open to new experiences, more willing to take risks, more able to connect deeply with others. This is the true power of breaking free from negative patterns. It's not just about solving a specific problem or changing a particular behavior. It's about fundamentally transforming our relationship with ourselves and the world around us. So as you move forward from here, remember this. Every time you notice yourself repeating a negative pattern, it's an opportunity to bring awareness to your behavior, to extend compassion to yourself, and to gently, persistently move in a new direction. You might need to repeat the pattern many times before you're ready to let it go, and that's okay. Trust the process. Trust yourself. With each repetition, you're gathering the wisdom you need to set yourself free. As you continue on this journey of self-discovery and growth, remember that you're not alone. Share your experiences in the comments below, subscribe for more insights, and spread this message to others who might be struggling with their own patterns. Together, we can create a world where personal growth is celebrated and supported. I hope this video helped you. Thank you for watching. This is Ayla, signing off.